Politicians around the world are trying to gradually reduce the usefulness of cash until they can eradicate it completely. Every transaction you ever made tells something about your habits, your politics, your associations, your movements, your physical location. And on the one hand, all of this data gets collected and shared among all of the intelligence agencies and corporations, or leaked. And on the other hand, if the people in power choose to, they can decide to debank you overnight. They turn off the switch. Now imagine what happens if your bank account is shut down and cash doesn't exist. Well, you can't eat. You can't buy food. Done. You can't use transportation. You can't rent an apartment. They can literally destroy your life in a second.
If you look at how the world's been acquired, it's been done by a banking scam where you lend people money that doesn't exist, we call it credit, and you charge them interest on it. If they don't pay the money back plus interest, then you get their wealth that does exist. You get their home, their business, their land, their resources, whatever. When you go to a bank and you say, borrow £50,000, they'll type into your account £50,000 in credit. Where's the credit come from? Here. But you're not paying back £50,000. You're paying back £50,000 plus interest. The interest is never created, only the principal. Because people think that governments create money. Money is overwhelmingly created by private banks issuing credit. That's how money comes into circulation. What this means is creating credit for the principal but not the interest is that at no point is there ever enough money in circulation to pay back all the debt and all the interest on the debt outstanding. So people losing their homes and their businesses and their resources, etc., is built into the system on purpose. Once you squeeze the money supply, you take money out of circulation, it becomes obvious that there's nothing like enough money in circulation to pay back all the debt. So there's people losing their homes, their resources, things that they own, for no other reason that there simply is not enough money for everyone to pay back the debt. So what do the banks do? Ooh, we'll have that. And this has been going on for centuries.
A incerteza sobre os rumos da economia americana está derrubando as bolsas nos Estados Unidos hoje.
Que as bolsas da Ásia fecharam em queda nessa quinta-feira, um dia depois, que o mercado entrou em colapso com o desempenho das principais economias do mundo.
O temor de uma recessão nos Estados Unidos derrubou os principais índices das bolsas de valores no mundo todo.
So how these people do this? How do these people who have control of the funds do it? And Solomon provided us a very clear and simple answer in Proverbs 22:7. He said, "The rich rule over the poor." He added, "And the borrower is servant to the lender." And the way that they gain control of not just people, but governments on an international level is the rich rule by creating ever-increasing levels of debt so that nations themselves become beholden to bankers in order just to keep the doors of government open. A network of global corporate control exert a massive amount of influence over the international economy from behind the scenes. The corrupt power grabbers have managed to dominate the media as well. Now, as interesting as these organizations are, there is yet another that's more significant. Because at the very center of this triad of the World Bank, the IMF, and the World Trade Organization is one of the most unknown, secretive, independent, and the most powerful financial entity in the world. And it has a name that you probably have never heard of before, and that's not by mistake. It's called the Bank of International Settlement. The Bank of International Settlement is located in Basel, Switzerland, and it's housed in a building, interestingly, referred to, now catch this, as the Tower of Basel. Coincidence, I suppose. coincidence.
I find it extremely interesting that the UPC barcode, as designed in 1973, was coincidentally designed around the number 666.
Universal Product Codes, or UPCs, are found on almost every store product today. These codes allow the cashier to scan the item into the computer instead of entering the price manually. Every UPC is made up of numbers and bars. The bars themselves also have a numerical value. Notice that the bars on the left, in the middle, and on the right of the code do not have numerical values underneath them. However, the other bars all do. So by comparing these three bars at the beginning, the middle, and the end with numbered bars, it is clear that those dividing bars always represent the number 6.
Even though it's not apparent visibly to anyone who looks at it, there is a mathematical representation there of the number 666.
The BIS is basically controlled by 8 to 10 privately owned central banks. They refer to it as the bank of the central banks of the world. And there are about 150 central banks. In other words, the Federal Reserve is a central bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of France, the Bank of Italy. These are, the Deutsche Bank and so forth. These are banks that really each nation has their own central bank which oversees the banking industry within their country. And this is the bank of all the international central banks. They received stolen goods and monies from many of the Jews and others who were killed by them, and they received them in deposit. And to this day, there's never been an accountability for reasons that may shock you. Today, at this very moment, the BIS holds at least 10% of the monetary reserves that are in the world. In other words, when we say, how do we transition, our gold reserves into dollars in another country, the BIS is the one who makes all those decisions, all those transactions. They control all of that. It's interesting because basically their goal is to prevent any kind of global financial collapse, but not because they care about you. Basically, they're letting you use their money to pay your bills.
Quase todos já ouviram falar sobre esta profecia de que nos últimos dias ninguém poderá comprar ou vender nada a menos que tenha a marca do diabo. Somos hoje a primeira geração com tecnologia para cumprir tal profecia de uma sociedade sem dinheiro vivo. Por exemplo, todo produto na minha cesta está marcado com um código de barras, com um número que o identifica.
Você talvez tenha notado que este código de barras, conhecido como Sistema Uniforme de Codificação de Produtos, tem 3 barras sem números no princípio, no meio e no fim. E elas são ligeiramente diferentes das outras. Todas essas outras linhas correspondem a um número. Preste atenção nesta linha em particular. Ela equivale ao número 6. Como pode ver, é exatamente igual às 3 linhas sem número que também representam o número 6. Então, todo produto com código de barras, na verdade, está marcado com um 666. O sistema 666 de identificação por código de barras é a base de outras tendências e tecnologia que nos levam rapidamente ao Sistema Único de Crédito Mundial mencionado no capítulo 13 do Apocalipse.
So that, as one writer put it, he says, each and every device will get an IP address, be it your computer, phone, toaster, wristwatch, fridge, door, water heater, car, alarm clock, oven, and then I added, and you. How can you track the population of the earth? By giving every person on the earth, all you need is a mere 7 billion addresses to every person who has their own address. Maybe stored in some kind of RFID chip on your hand or your forehead. But I love this statement. The one article I was reading, he concluded by saying, the internet will no longer be about information, but about things. You know what you are? In their mind, you are a thing. It's no longer about information. It's about controlling everything, identifying, tracking, following, rating, valuing, selecting, sorting, sifting. Everything on the planet including the humanity that lives here.
Entretanto, antes do dinheiro, cheques e cartão de crédito saírem de circulação totalmente, é preciso desenvolver um sistema de identificação totalmente seguro e que garanta que o cartão apresentado pertence realmente ao portador.
Vários sistemas de identificação seguros já foram desenvolvidos, como, por exemplo, o leitor de impressão digital. O único problema com essas máquinas é que são extremamente caras. E para uma sociedade sem dinheiro vivo funcionar, seria necessário ter esse aparelho em cada lojinha ou local onde se venda ou compre mercadoria.
Enquanto esses terminais de identificação custam milhares de dólares cada, os microchips nos cartões inteligentes custam apenas poucos dólares. Então, e se você pegasse o chip do cartão e o colocasse sob a pele? Depois que o chip estiver implantado, ele pode ser lido por um scanner simples, bem parecido com o que se usa nas lojas hoje. Assim, você se torna o seu próprio cartão inteligente e resolve-se o problema de certificar-se que o portador do cartão é o dono do mesmo.
Nos Estados Unidos, o Departamento de Saúde e Serviços Humanos afirma que a implementação em alta escala do projeto de identificação através de microchips já teve seu início em Washington e várias outras cidades cobaias. Esses pequenos microchips, que são menores do que uma cabeça de alfinete, custam menos do que 25 centavos cada e são injetados a alguns milímetros sob a pele. Ativado por um pequeno scanner portátil, o chip supre informações seguras sobre a pessoa na qual foi implantado. Então, como podem ver, a tecnologia e a aceitação do público para fazer o sistema da marca da besta funcionar está rapidamente engrenando. Já estamos ouvindo constantemente sobre a nova ordem mundial ou a comunidade global. E esses slogans estão aos poucos sendo aceitos à medida que o mundo caminha para um sistema financeiro e político internacional, para uma sociedade sem dinheiro vivo, controlada por um banco de dados que abrange todo o globo, mantendo-se a par de cada homem, mulher e criança, quando atravessam fronteiras, compram e vendem. Exatamente como a previsão no capítulo 13 do Apocalipse, há quase 2000 anos.
Matrix é um sistema, Neo. Esse sistema é nosso inimigo. E quando está lá dentro, o que vê? Executivos, professores, advogados, carpinteiros. As mentes das pessoas que estamos tentando salvar. Mas até que o façamos, essas pessoas continuam sendo parte do sistema. E isso as torna nossas inimigas. Deve entender. E a maioria dessas pessoas não está pronta para ser desplugada. E muitas estão tão habituadas, tão irremediavelmente dependentes do sistema, que irão lutar para proteger.